Hello friends, Plato here, and today is the day most of you have been waiting for if any of you wanted a FP Technomancer build. This is going to be my Ultimate Firepower Techno build 2.0 for Worldslayer. With many hours of playing this build and testing a lot of options, I'm quite confident to say that this is going to be the most versatile and best version of Firepower Techno you can currently make. With the changes made for FP Techno with Worldslayer, we'll have to get slightly more creative, a little bit more on this later, as right now the biggest issue with FP Techno is losing ammo on the Trials Arbiters, as we are still blasting mobs perfectly fine. So how do we solve this problem? Stick around to the guide and find out. It's going to require one piece of gear swapping as well as one skill swap, but you'll fully understand what I mean when we touch on the subject. It'll make you from losing blighted 100% time on the Arbiters to never losing them again while keeping your insane damage. With this build, we'll be consistently hitting around 21 to 23 million crits, as high as 25 when conditions align, and even higher as we scale and reach Apocalypse 40, while still keeping that juicy AoE damage. Like I always say, you want a good mix of single target damage and AoE damage on every class you play if possible. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Let's go ahead and start with our skills. For this build, we'll be running Cold Snap, Blighted Rounds, and Blighted Turret. I'm going to just quickly go into Blighted Rounds and its mechanics. Blighted Rounds, like all other round skills, Twisted, Volcanic, infuse their billets with anomaly-based rounds. So what does this mean? It means that we don't ever have to worry about enemy armor. Because our bullets get infused with anomaly-based rounds, we now go through resistance piercing and get that sweet, juicy armor pierce for free. Oh, and Blighted Round scales with anomaly damage to a lot, more on that later. As for Cold Snap and Turret, more on this later too. Moving on to our class tree, we'll be going the exact same top tree that FP Techno has been going since launch. Let's quickly go over these nodes and why we take them. The first thing we'll quickly focus on is that Techno's class passive gives us a free 15% long range weapon damage bonus, more on why this is important later, and 15% weapon leech and skill leech to help with our survivability. Heading to our first node, we will be taking Impact Amplifier for a free 8% weapon damage. Our next node will be Suction Module for the weapon leech, as the cooldown is not needed here. Next, we'll be taking Drill Coating as we need this to move along with the tree. We're going to head down and grab Havoc Nexus for the 15% critical damage, and also taking Exposing Toxin, which makes it so that every time we apply Toxic, which is 100% of the time with Blighted Rounds active, enemies become vulnerable and take an additional 15% in damage. To finish off the bottom pathing, we'll go to Mark for Execution to make our vulnerable damage 40% more effective. This means instead of 15% extra damage on vulnerable, we'll be at 21%. Hot. Heading back up, we're going to take Nitrogen Capsule, which will decrease the distance considered to be long range by 3 meters. To everyone that is new to Outriders, this node is S tier. As Technomancer, we get a huge chunk of our damage staying in long range. This is 18 meters by default. Once we take both Nitrogen Capsules, the second one is coming soon, this will drop it to 12 meters to be considered long range. This means as long as enemies are 12 meters or farther in range, you'll be getting all of that juicy long range multiplier damage. So how can we distinguish long range or just range in general in Outriders? Well, if you ever paid attention to your minimap, each radar line on our minimap indicates 10 meters in range. Moving forward, we'll be taking another Impact Amplifier to increase our weapon damage, and as mentioned earlier, taking our second Nitrogen Capsule. We're also going to be taking Purge for the no-brainer 10% damage to Toxic, and moving on with the tree with another Impact Amplifier. We're going to quickly head up and grab Assault Master for the additional 20% increase to your assault weapon damage, as tactical ARs are still best in slot for Firepower Techno. Our next node will be Assault Adept for an additional 12% increase to assault weapon damage. We'll move on to taking Drill Coating as we are forced to progress the tree, and quickly head down for 2 sides of the power. Sure, we receive 10% more damage here, but we also deal 10% more damage to everything. The 10% more damage we do take is negligible due to our class getting a free 15% weapon leech as well as a free 15% skill leech just with our passive. This node does not impact our survivability whatsoever. We then move on to Sharpshooter. While we're forced to take this node, goddamn this is juicy, 15% increase to our long range weapon damage. Remember earlier why I said we get a huge chunk of our damage when we're in long range? Yeah. It's an insane amount, so make sure you're always in long range. Our next node is going to be UT-14 clips to increase our magazine size. This will take our 30-round tactical assault rifle to 45 rounds. This is super helpful in never losing our blighted rounds. Then we're going to be moving on to Purge for an additional 15% damage to Toxic, and our final capstone, Empowering Antenna, which gives us a 30% weapon damage increase anytime we throw our turrets, which is on an insanely low cooldown, so make sure to always be throwing your turret for that juicy damage. For our last remaining point, this one's a freebie, put it wherever, it really doesn't matter. If you are, however, going Dark Sack here, I recommend Blur Screen. If you're going Fortress, I would recommend something like Anomalous Body. Heading to our PAX Tree, we're going to be going full top tree here, starting with Initial Striker. Activating skills increases your anomaly power or firepower by 10% for 5 seconds, depending on whichever is higher. Our firepower will always be higher than our anomaly power, so this is a nice free 10% firepower boost. The next node we'll be taking is Brain Dead. Activating our decay or gadget skills, which will be our Blighted Turret and Cold Snap, increases our weapon damage by 15% for 5 seconds. This can pretty much be on a 100% uptime in most cases. The next node we'll be taking here is Painkiller, and at first glance this may not seem all that amazing, but when paired with a certain T2 mod, will provide 20% weapon damage increase, basically giving us a free Dark Sacrifice on a T2 armor mod. A little bit more on this armor mod when we go over our gear. The second to last node we'll be taking here is Permanence, as anytime we inflict Toxic, which is 100% of the time without blighted rounds, we'll also have a chance to apply a random additional status, which feeds our capstone node here, Dissection. 5% more damage to enemies for every status inflicted on them. Not much more needs to be said about how synergistic this all is. Hot stuff. Heading to our Ascension Points, we will always be putting our first 10 points into Anomaly Damage. Why? Because it is the single best stat in the game. Anomaly damage increases our damage for blighted rounds, our weapon mods on our guns like Wrath of Moloch, and many others, damage to our armor mods like Icicle Storm, etc. Please do not confuse anomaly damage with anomaly power. These are two different bonuses. Every build, no matter what build it is, will always benefit from this stat. If you are not running anomaly damage on your Ascension Points, you better start now. If you see anyone else not having anomaly damage on their Ascension Points, tell them why it's so good. For the rest of our points, we'll be putting them in the stats that help FP Techno out the most. Things like status power, crit damage, long range damage, weapon damage, damage to elites, extra mag, weapons leech, skills leech. Once you have all of these filled out, I like to head into the endurance tree for a bit more additional survivability, resistance, damage from elites, etc. And now, let's head to our gear, the juice of this build. We're going to start with our weapon. The only weapon in the build we will need is going to be an Inferno Seed. Why? Because it comes with the perfect attributes for Firepower Techno in crit damage, status power, and long range damage, and is also a tactical version of the Assault Rifle, and that is the best AR type in the game. I pretty much have a god roll version of the Inferno Seed, as it rolled with T3 freezing bullets on my Apocalypse mod, and I smacked Dark Sacrifice for Brain Eater. Why is T3 Ultimate Freezing Bullets god roll? Because we will be using none other than the Borealis set. More on that when we get to it. If you're wondering, Plato, why are you running Dark Sacrifice? Wasn't it nerfed? Well, you have to remember, a lot of things were nerfed globally. While it was nerfed, it is still the best option here. If you do not like the HP drain of Dark Sacrifice, then Fortress is a great choice too. You lose about 2 million damage on crits, but you gain more tankiness. Killing Spree is also an option, but mainly only good for mobbing, as it's very unlikely you're going to be able to consistently stack those stacks for Killing Spree when you're fighting the Arbiter. Some of you may also ask, Plato, why are you not running Omen? 1, I don't want 24/7 blazing of the sun in my eyes, and 2, it's just okay now. It's pretty much a former shell of itself, only a 10% debuff for 3 seconds and bleed. Yeah, no, that's just not going to be the play here. You're just losing damage by going Omen. So why do we now keep Wrath of Moloch and not Brain Eater? Well, with the changes to our good old T2 Bone Shrapnel mod, we need some form of AoE, and this is a great option as it just comes on the Inferno Seed. It will also feed into our Dissection with the Burn application, so that's a nice bonus. Remember what I said about anomaly damage earlier? It's going to increase the AoE damage of Wrath of Moloch, so that's also another bonus. Now, before we move on from our weapon, I do want to point out something really important, and that is the effective range of our weapon, or any weapon in general. If we take a look at our effective range on our Inferno Seed and all tactical assault rifles, this is 42 meters. Why is this important, Plato? Well, this means if you are out of the 42 meter range, you will receive an overall damage penalty. You'll still be able to crit, but your overall damage will suffer. So make sure you're in that sweet spot range, which is going to be 12 meters to 14 meters. As a refresher, you can tell what the range is by the radar lines on your minimap. Each line is 10 meters in range. Our secondary and our pistols don't really matter here at all, so just do what you feel like, honestly. As to why our secondary and pistols don't matter for FP Techno anymore in the Trials of Tari Grichar, this has everything to do with the new method, or old new method, of never losing rounds on bosses. Let's head to our armor pieces. For the stats we want on FP Techno, we're going to always want to prioritize bonus firepower, status power, and long range damage if possible. For our helmet, we're rocking this Sergio's Beret, as it comes with bonus firepower and status power. In a perfect world, we would need a god roll purple that also came with long range damage, But that's going to be like winning the lotto, as you're going to need the perfect stats and perfect mods. For the mods we have here, we are running Sharp Eye, which got a massive buff, as with all the other flat, anomaly power, and firepower damage T3 mods. At Apocalypse 37, we are getting 175,000 firepower per stack, which is hot. Then we have Dum Dum Bullets for an additional 12% assault weapon damage, which is just extremely nice to have. And for our Apoc mod, we were blessed with Alchemical Mastery. Anytime we pop Blighted Rounds, it will give us a 15% bonus based on our status power and convert that into our weapon damage or anomaly power, depending on which is higher. Since we will always have higher firepower, with our current setup that has 257% status power, we are getting a juicy 38% increase in our weapon damage. This is very, very good. Moving to our chest piece, that's right, we're still running Borealis, baby. Even though now it's 50% damage to freeze, it's still so damn good. Quick tip, as a firepower techno, do not ignore the 10% crit damage we get from this set every time we pop Cold Snap. This 10% is going to make your crits do that much more damage, increasing your time to kill. For the mods we are running here, we have Icicle Storm, which is the best Cold Snap mod in the game, which remember also gets an increase due to our anomaly damage Ascension Points. Icicle Storm is one of our other methods of our AoE clear along with Wrath of Moloch. Our second mod we have here is Splash Boost, which increases the splash effect radius of successful shots with our Blighted Rounds by 50%. You may think, damn Plato, that sounds like a not so good T3 mod, but you could not be more wrong. Splash Boost is the #1 defensive mod on Firepower Techno. Why? It increases our Blighted Round splash radius and applies Toxic to more enemies as the radius has been increased. What happens when there are more enemies that have Toxic applied to them? That's right, we heal off of our 15% skills life leech from our class passive. And on top of that, we'll still be blasting enemies while this passive effect is happening, so we're also healing off of our weapon leech. Not only that, it will proc our exposing toxin node and mark every enemy in red thanks to the vulnerable status. Oh, and we can't discount the amazing AoE bonus we get here as well, as the increase in damage we get from Splash Boost AoE with none other than our anomaly damage Ascension Points. It's basically a hat trick of a mod. And for the last mod, we have Captain Hunter, a cornerstone of practically every build. More damage to elites is always warranted. For our pants, we have set piece 2 of 3. We're running Euthanizer here for obvious reasons. More toxic damage is a no-brainer, and that goes for Freezing Boost as well. While Freezing Boost is not what it used to be, it comes on the pants and there is no better alternative. For our Apoc mod, we have Captain Hunter Light in V Compound. 10% additional damage to enemies afflicted by Toxic or Blightfire. We always apply Toxic with our Blighted Round, so we always get the full uptime of this on elites. The AoE is a nice bonus too. Moving to our gloves, and to complete the Borealis trifecta is the gloves of the Borealis Monarch. We're running Shatter, no explanation needed here, as well as Kingslayer and Trick up the sleeve. Just like with Sharp Eye, Kingslayer is a flat firepower T3 mod which got a massive buff this patch. 524,000 bonus fire for 10 seconds at Apocalypse 30 seconds when we hit crits on elites is a no-brainer. This is actually just insane the amount of damage you get out of this mod now. We already have enough damage to kill mobs with ease, so even more elite damage is perfect for our build. Kingslayer is no longer a meme, guys. And for our final mod, we have Trick up the sleeve. Anytime we get killing shots with Blighted Rounds, we get 30% of our ammo back, and this is how we keep our infinite rounds. Please note that Toxic Lead is also a great alternative, however less inconsistent in multiplayer if you are not the host due to the P2P connection. For our boots, I was lucky to find one with the perfect stats and the cycle rolled on it. Remember earlier when we were going over the PAX Tree and I mentioned why Painkiller is so good for us? Well, this mod is why. With the 2% health regeneration we get for 3 seconds that stacks up to 2 times with this Painkiller PAX Tree node, as long as we are doing damage, which is all the time because we are pew-pewing, this becomes a 20% weapon damage bonus conversion with the T2 cycle mod. You're seeing 0% here, which is normal as the card number will only update once you start doing damage. A T2 mod providing us with 5% less weapon damage than T3 Darksack? Yeah, it's again a no-brainer we take this. And for the last mod in our build, kinda like saving the best for last, we have To the Bone. I have not seen many other Firepower Techno build guides even consider or talk about why this mod is so good, as I imagine they don't fully yet understand why anomaly damage is so good. Look at this, anytime we activate Blighted Rounds, we get a whopping 15% permanent increase to our anomaly damage, as long as we have the skill active. Do we remember why Reload Boost was so cracked on AP Pyro? Yeah, FP Techno basically got its own version of reload boost. You may be wondering, well, Play-Doh, is 15% really worth it? If I was jerking off to how good the 10% anomaly damage bonus is we got just from our Ascension Points is any indicator, another free 15% is insane. But now you're going, this is great and all, Play-Doh, but how are we still going to be keeping 100% uptime on blighted rounds when we got those pesky Arbiters in the trials? I'm so glad you asked. Remember earlier when I said we'll be needing to do a quick one-piece gear swap and one skill swapping for bossing? Well, the time has come. Right before we face any Arbiter in the trials, we will be swapping out our Cold Snap with Fixing Wave, as it provides no value for us on the Arbiters. Sure, we lose our 10% crit damage on Snap, but that's a trade-off I'll take to 100% never lose blighted rounds for the Arbiter. This will be done by swapping out our ammo regen mod on a piece of gear, as this also provides no value during bossing. And what will we replace it with? None other than Quartermaster, which is a Fixing Wave mod that replenishes our entire magazine anytime we use the Fixing Wave skill. On my current build, I am able to easily swap out my gloves of the Borealis Monarch, which has Trick Up the Sleeve, for another piece of the same gloves, but with Quartermaster. Now, you don't need to have the perfect gear replacement like me. As long as you have a gear piece to swap off with Quartermaster for your ammo regen mod when it comes to bossing, you will be fine. Just keep in mind, if you are going to swap out any of the Borealis set pieces, to have a replacement set piece of the same set, so you keep the Borealis damage bonus on freeze. If you're wondering why we're not using something like Spare Mag or just adding Spare Mag to the build, this is simple. In group play and even in solo, Spare Mag just won't be enough, especially at higher Apoc tiers. Another option instead of Quartermaster could be the new License to Heal mod, which gives you a 4-second of unlimited ammo and 10% weapon damage bonus, but I still find Quartermaster to be the most efficient and consistent. I've tested both and I prefer Quartermaster. Let's take a look at how easily I handle the final Arbiter with this quick 5-second gear / skill swapping method on Apoc tier 37. To recap this build, for those that don't quite have the Apocalypse items necessary, I'd recommend these mods. For our Inferno Seed, Wrath of Moloch, and Ultimate Freezing Bullets. For our gear mods, focus on To the Bone, The Cycle, Alchemical Mastery, Euthanizer, Shatter, Freezing Boost, Icicle Storm, Sharp Eye, Splash Boost, and Captain Hunter. Then add all the other pieces once you farm those juicy Apoc gears with those juicy Apoc mods. Now time for some quick tips and tricks. Make sure to always be in long range and your weapon's effective range for maximum damage. Remember, this is between 12 to 42 meters. You heal off of doing damage, so always be shooting. Use Cold Snap for a spicy mob clear or as a get out of jail free card if you're getting swarmed. Make sure to also tap your TAC AR with rhythm, as if you do this, the fire rate will be increased to almost match that of the full auto assault rifle. Keep up with ammo management by always switching to a mob enemy. If you're close to running out of ammo when blasting elites, for example, you're blasting a Broodmother and you see yourself running low on ammo and can't finish her off. That's what she said. Simply switch to a trash mob, get ammo back, and continue blasting. Remember to always throw your Blighted Turret for that massive 30% increase in weapon damage. Your Blighted Turret also heals you using skills Life Leech. You can dodge roll to remove fire, might not always work the first time around though, but I would recommend anytime you see yourself on fire, dodge roll baby, stop, drop, and roll. You can also melee and roll to get out of freeze, and also use your melee or any skill that has an animation to stop from getting staggered. Do note, you'll still take the damage. And lastly, remember to always go for crits on elites. That's it for the build, guys. As always, thanks to everyone for tuning in, and if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Feel free to check out any of my other Worldslayer videos and other build guides like the Lethal Shaman AP Techno that should be popping up anytime now. If you'd like, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and also hit that notification bell if you want. Remember, you can also always catch me on my stream at twitch.tv/PlayDohBear to ask any and all Outriders questions, as well as trials carries if I am running them. Until the next one, peace.